Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Dr. Janice R. Love, also known as the First Lady Coach. Tonight we are going to be talking about how to silence that inner critic through the use of a tool that I will teach you on tonight, self-compassion. So learn how to shut that self-critic down by having that self-compassion. Join me. Self compassion silences your inner critic and improves your confidence. All right, so again, we have been talking all month about confidence, and we have given you several ways in order to improve your confidence. Now, last week we talked about the most important thing a pastor's wife can do to build self confidence. So, if you didn't get a chance to see that, go back and check out the replay on that. But again, tonight we are going to be talking about how self compassion silences your inner critic and improves your confidence. So we know that again, confidence is a measure of our belief in our own abilities. We know that oftentimes it's something that we struggle with, but we often do not want anybody to know that we struggle with it, unless it will sometimes be to our benefit. So let's talk a little bit about critics. We all have them. I know I have them. I know you have them, but they are the ones that will often point a finger at us and tell us what we aren't or what we are, in fact, giving us labels, or they will criticize you for the things that you do, say, you know, I even get criticized. I don't know about y'all, but I've even been criticized if I have the same hairdo too long. But the good thing about critics, you know what? Most times they talk behind your back. They usually don't say anything to your face. Is that true? So we all have critics. Okay. So a critic, again, is one who typically may judge, one who criticizes, one, again, who may just overall have something to say about you, right? And it's usually not positive. It is typically on the negative side. That's why they call them critics. Now, there are some critics out there who may be criticizing from a standpoint of wanting you to do better. No, I'm not even going to go there because there's things like movie critics and that kind of stuff, and they look at the whole picture. But typically, when people criticize us, they go straight for the jugular and again, criticize hair. She wore that same outfit last time. You know how much time we spent in the closet trying to figure out when we wore something last time, all because people are so quick to criticize us. So again, we have critics. But you know what? When the critic lives inside your head, that is another story. So let's talk a little bit about the inner critic. She lives with you. She is the one that just when you think you have it going on, she jumps out there and tells you that you don't have it going on. A inner critic is one who is inside, it's a voice inside your head that criticizes you again for what you do, say, wear, but it takes it a little further. Typically, you'll know it's a critic because it uses critic language like always, never, you're too this, you're not enough this. It uses the kind of language that never has anything between black and white. Either you don't or you do or you don't. But it's things like always and never. So she uses those types of words. Like you never do that right. You're too dumb. You're too short. You're too fat. You're too whatever. But she will often use those words. And the challenge is she's in your head and you are carrying her around with you. Now, a critic, an inner critic can be extremely harsh, on us. Again, they can be judgmental. And again, they don't do it behind your back. She's doing it right to your face. She'll do it sometimes when you look in the mirror and tell you that you don't look right or that you should have done this. She uses the language of should. You should have. You should not have. In fact, she has you shoulding all over yourself. So again, you can understand the language of the self-critic because it typically labels and again uses things like too much or you're to this or you never or you always or again you're not enough. So first of all, I want you to recognize that you do have an inner critic. And again, she shows up just when you think you have built up just a little bit of confidence, she shows up. Yeah, for instance, this happens to me every time I come out here live, y'all. I see a hair out of place, which I don't even worry about because if something's going to be out of place, right? Or I see something wrong and that inner critic says, see, you always do that. You always whatever. So remember that the critic, again, you can't, she's there, right? And she's walking around with you. She'll undermine your confidence and even sometimes your own self worth. Okay. Again, remember the language that she uses. But again, we are familiar with when others criticize us. And the self critic, again, is a lot harsher. Trust me, she is a lot harsher than we are, even with other people. And even, again, more than our own critics are. So the inner critic oftentimes will point a finger at you and tell you what it is you can't do or what you can do. But again, she lives with you. So the way that we can shut that inner critic down, we can put her in her place and tell her where she needs to go is through self-compassion. Now, again, we all are familiar with compassion because we show it for one another. When a sister is going through something, we are very, very quick to show compassion. We will support her. We will hold her hand. We will forgive her. We will listen. I tell you, when we are showing compassion to someone else, we go all out. Look, I got to talking too fast, but we go all out because again, we know what it's like to have someone to show compassion towards us. And so many times we are good at being compassionate for others. But when it comes to ourselves, we wouldn't let some people talk to us the way we talk to ourselves. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about self compassion. Self compassion is doing that same compassion that you have for everybody else and giving it to yourself. Again, it's listening, it's supporting, it's being there, especially when somebody is dealing with a tough time. Self compassion, what I will let you know is that you're not born with it. It is a tool that you must develop. It is a skill set that you have to develop. It's the reason why now that inner critic runs off and says whatever she wants to us because we have not been able to develop that skill of self-compassion. Now, again, we know what it is because we do a great job of it when it comes to supporting other people. But we can have that same self-compassion for ourselves. It's being kind, it's being sympathetic, it's being helpful to yourself. Now, when we talk about self compassion, I want to break this up into three different things that you have to do in order to build that skill of self compassion. Are y'all ready for the three things that you got to do in order to build that self compassion? All right, the first thing is the same thing we talked about yesterday, it's knowing yourself. So, again, when you know who you are, when you know what your strengths are, when you know what your challenges are, when you know who you are and who God created you to be, that will keep that inner critic from coming out and talking about you like you're not all of that, right? So, for instance, let me share with you that when I was in undergraduate school, I was good at biology and I was a pre-med major at the time. I was good at biology, but I was lousy at chemistry. So many times when it would come down to that time to have that chemistry test, and if any of my chemistry buddies are on here or my friends who are in pharmacy watch this, they will know I complained all the time about chemistry. I was not good at it. So, but if I knew that about myself, I didn't have to beat up on myself. again, when we know that there are certain things that give us energy, when we know there are things that zap us, rather than judging ourselves, we just have to accept who we are and accept who God created us to be. It wasn't us. God created us that way. So we have to accept some things about ourselves. Many times we judge ourselves for something that's not even under our control. So again, when you are showing self-compassion to yourself, when you know yourself, it's just like when you know something about somebody, you know their background, what they went through, the challenges they've had in life. When you know those things, you're usually a lot more compassionate. So know who you are, and then you're able to show that compassion. All right. So that's the first thing. So remember, last week we talked about you having that personal power portfolio that I do in my chosen framework, where you know all about who God created you, and you know the things that He put in you in order to be able to do the things that He has asked you to do. So that is the first thing, is to know thyself. And then the second thing that you have to do in order to have that self-compassion is to accept truth. Again, there are some things about you. Maybe you like them, maybe you don't like them, but they are true. Okay. They are what they are. If you have black hair, and you beat up on yourself because you dyed another color and it keeps coming back black, accept the truth. If you are only going to be so tall, accept the truth, and don't again try to beat up on yourself for something that was completely out of your control. And again, even if there are things that have happened in your past, they happen, and let's keep going, let's move forward, but accept whatever truth that is. Again, when we know something about someone else, we don't question why. We just accept it for what it is. So again, if we are showing compassion towards a friend, and maybe she's gone through a tough time, maybe she has gone through a divorce, maybe she experienced something like having an abortion or something like that, we have to accept it as it is. That's not the time to ask why. And again, when we are showing that self-compassion to ourselves, we are simply acknowledging the facts, acknowledging what is true. Okay. And again, you don't have to approve of it. You don't even have to, again, question it. And do not ever use the facts to beat up on yourself. Okay. Because the facts, the truth is the truth. And remember, the truth will set you free. All right. So again, when we know the truth, again, we can accept it for what it is, and then we can continue to move forward from there. All right, that's number 2. Accept the truth. And then finally, the third thing that we have to do in order to have that self-compassion is to forgive yourself. So many times others will forgive us before we will often forgive ourselves. There are some things in your life right now that, again, maybe you made some mistakes. Maybe you said some things or did some things, or you didn't do some things or say some things. We oftentimes will not forgive ourselves for something we feel like we should have done. Remember that should word that we often put on ourselves. But forgive your mistakes and shortcomings. Grant yourself relief, okay? When you forgive somebody, you grant them the relief for repayment. Okay. So grant yourself some relief. Let go of the past, learn from it. Okay. But forgive yourself for those things that you have experienced. And when you can forgive yourself, then that critic can't keep throwing all that stuff back up in your face about what you did, because you have already moved forward and forgiven yourself. You have wiped the slate clean. You asked forgiveness from God, and He wiped the slate clean, right? So expect the same thing from yourself. Okay, so I have covered 3 different things that you have to have in order to have that self-compassion that ultimately will be able to help you to shut that inner critic down. So again, tonight we have been talking about how self-compassion silences your inner critic and improves your confidence. And when I am working with my clients in my chosen model, one of the areas that we focus on is module 3, which I call out of the shadows, emerge out of the shadows. These things, these areas where we are being an inner critic to ourselves, where we are judging ourselves, whether we are bringing up the past or our mistakes and those kinds of things, it's time to emerge out of those shadows. There are many times in my life where my inner critic has come up to bring something against me, and I gave her a name, right? Because I know that she will show up and try to judge me and try to convince me that I can't be all that God created me to be. I call her little TT, right? I call her little TT because she brings up things like anxiety, things like uh, complexity, other things that again will make me second guess myself and judge myself. All right. So again, I'd love to tell you how you too can emerge from those shadows of the inner critic by having that self-compassion. We can do a deep dive in it, so you will have all the tools that you need in order to shut that inner critic down through self-compassion. And again, have that clarity, that confidence, and that courage to walk boldly into the destiny for which you have been chosen by being perfectly who God created you to be. All right. Thank you.